I had someone message me the other day asking the best way to build their gas tank for an upcoming fight. So I asked them one thing: what do you do off camp? And that's when the silence kicked in. See, this is a conversation I have almost every single day. Fighters reaching out, saying they gas out, they fade in later rounds, or they combos slow down. And every time I ask the same question: what does your conditioning look like outside of camp? And every time it's the same answer: nothing. So in this video, I'm going to show you why your gas tank keeps failing you, and it's probably not why you think. I'm not going to throw some other random conditioning protocol that's trending on Instagram at you. I'm going to show you an actual system that prepares fighters to be ready rather than scrambling. Here's what most fighters do, and this might sound familiar. You do some running one week, maybe circuits the next. A mate at the gym tells you to jump on the assault bike, so you throw those in as well. Then you see a video about how good zone 2 is, so you throw in some slower jogs. And then camp starts and you hope that it just kind of comes all together. And unfortunately, that's not a conditioning program, that's just spraying and praying. And that's genuinely where most fighters are sitting. They're kind of freestyling it or just winging it completely. But these aren't lazy athletes. They're training 5-6 days a week, sometimes a few hours a day. So they're putting the hours in and the effort's there, but there's just no structure. And without structure, you're basically just collecting fatigue and hoping for the best. And that guy who messaged me had no intervals and no intent. There was nothing really going on outside of fight camp. And the problem with that is that you're expecting to build an elite level gas tank in 4, 5, 6, even 8 weeks if you're lucky. And it's just not enough. And that's not what fight camp's for anyway. Fight camp is supposed to be for adding the turbo, adding the final little touches, tightening everything up. So if you're still in camp trying to build on what was supposed to be done out of camp, you're already behind. And without the base, you're kind of just scrambling. Or better yet, you're doing damage control. So what does it look like when you have a system? It's actually pretty simple. There's just 2 phases. And everything you do for conditioning should sit in one of these buckets. Phase 1 is building the engine. This is where you build your aerobic base. So that's kind of your ability to recover between rounds, between hard exchanges, and even between sessions throughout the week. You need this foundation so when intensity goes up, your body has something to fall back on. And the best way to build that is not just long, slow, steady state runs for hours on end. It's using structured aerobic intervals. So you've got longer work periods, but you're still hitting a decent intensity. I'll give you the exact numbers later in the video. And phase 2 is adding the turbo. This is your in-camp work. So once you've built the engine, you sharpen it. You shift from aerobic intervals to things like sprint intervals. Shorter work, higher intensity, and more explosive. And this is where you improve your ability for repeat outputs. So things like hard exchanges or scrambles or even just things like the natural surges that happen in a fight. But the key here is that off-camp and in-camp have completely different jobs. Off-camp you're building, in-camp you're sharpening. And when you separate these 2 phases and actually progress them with structure, your fight camps stop being some mystery box surprise where you don't know how you're going to perform until the very end. Now, there's a lot of coaches out there that will just say doing more of your sport is enough. And honestly, for the most part, they're not wrong. Getting better at your sport, like understanding pacing, managing your intensity, even just the technical efficiency that comes with the skill, that does make a massive difference to how you feel during rounds, 100%. But here's the thing, most of you can't actually control your sparring environment. You might not always get the right training partners at the right time. So you don't want your gas tank to rely completely on your gym schedule. Off-mat conditioning is kind of like your insurance policy. It's the one part of your fitness that you have complete control over. You control the intensity, the volume, and the progression. So it doesn't matter who turns up to class that day or what your coach has planned. So for sure, get better at your sport, but you also need to build a base of conditioning off the mats where you have complete control over it. If this is making sense so far and you want the exact system I use with my fighters all the way from 12 weeks out into fight week, I've got a free conditioning guide that you can grab in the description below. There's everything from the sets, intensity, reps, all there laid out for you, so don't miss it. Now, I will give you some specifics because I know that's probably why you're here. I just need you to understand something first. There are 1,000 conditioning protocols online. But the main issue doesn't stem from the protocol itself. The issue is that most fighters run them with absolutely no context. There's no reason for why they're doing that protocol on that day in that phase. So here's how you should think about it. You're starting with longer intervals, moderate intensity, and very structured rest periods. Something like 3 to 4 minutes of work at around 70 to 75% effort with anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes rest for around 4 or 5 rounds. That's it. You're not trying to die here. You're just trying to build enough of a capacity where you're not running yourself into the ground, but you still got a solid base. And as you get closer to fight camp, the intervals become shorter, but far more intense. So you move from longer to short intervals where you're still in the aerobic zone, but you might be working only for 15 to 25 seconds or so, and then similar times for your rest. So you're still building the engine, but you're just layering in some more intensity to get ready for fight camp. And then when you're in camp, you shift into sprint intervals and repeat sprint intervals. This is where it gets sharper and a little bit harder. Sprint intervals could be something like 20 to 30 seconds of max effort, followed by about 2 minutes rest. And you only need 5 or 6 reps of these to see serious results. The hardest part about these is that you want those reps to be super high intensity. That's how you get something out of it. And as you get closer to the fight, the intervals can become even shorter and more explosive. This is where you might add in repeat sprints. So it's something like 5 to 10 seconds of max effort, followed by anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds of rest. And then right before fight week, you might want to add in something like alactic intervals. This is where you'll do really short explosive efforts, like 8 seconds on, but then you have 52 seconds of rest. This is purely about sharpening the blade. You're not necessarily getting fitter here. So hopefully you can see the progression here. You're moving from long to slow aerobic intervals, then into sprint intervals, repeat sprint intervals, and if you like, you can add alactic power at the very end. Each phase has a purpose and every single session has a reason for being there. That's what separates a system from a workout. Now you're not just surviving sessions for the sake of it. And I want to finish with a story because I think this drives the whole point home better than anything else. One of my fighters recently won by knockout in round 2, but it was honestly one of the worst camps he's ever had. And they were his words, not mine. The promoter was stuffing him around. He didn't really know if he was going to fight, so training was off and on again. He missed some sessions. The camp was super messy. And at the end, he only really had the fight locked in from about 2.5 weeks out. But we still made sure he had structure the whole way through. His conditioning was preset and programmed just the way we spoke about, all the way from early off camp through to fight week. So when there were sessions missed or we weren't sure what was happening with the fight, we didn't panic, we just stuck to the system and the structure that was already there. We knew exactly what to adjust and we could make up key sessions if we needed to. And the best part about it was we didn't have to stress every time something changed. His training load and intensity were tracked the whole way through. So it meant that we didn't need to guess and we just had a system to fall back on every single time. We knew where he was at and what he still needed. See, this is where most fighters make the same mistake. They don't have any system. So when life gets in the way, and I promise you, it always does, there's no system to hold everything together and it all falls apart. A bad camp with no system is an absolute disaster, but a bad camp with a system is still manageable. You adjust, you adapt, and you can still show up dangerous. And that's what structured programming actually gives you. Not just a plan for when everything goes perfectly, but a framework for when it doesn't. So just to bring it all together, if your gas tank keeps failing you, the answer is probably not more work. Instead, it's more structure. Build the engine outside of camp and sharpen it in camp. Don't expect to work magic in the short period of 4, 6, or 8 weeks. Give every session a purpose and build a simple system that survives the mess. Because trust me, combat sports is always messy. And remember, if you want the exact conditioning system that we've spoken about in this video that I use with all of my fighters, with every rep, set, and intensity, it's in the description below. And if this video has helped you at all, make sure you subscribe because I got a lot more of this coming.